Welcome, everyone, to a Litter Media Live special edition. I am your host, Mike Smith, along with Chillicothe Mayor Luke Feeney. We'll be talking about some of the city business as we are getting nearer to the end of 2024. Our visit today is brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it. Back with Luke Feeney right after this.
I was looking for a first job. I had been babysitting and decided it was something for a little more permanent. It pays very well. It's convenient. You can make your own schedule with the flexibility. That's something that I like. The people that I work with are great. I wouldn't ask for a better crew or management team to work for.
Back with Chillicothe Mayor Luke Feeney here on Litter Media Live special edition. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And if I forget to mention at the end, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll give my greetings before we close out. Was watching some of Chillicothe City Council meeting on Monday night. One of the things they were talking about was an open house for the Armory in Yoctangee Park. I believe that's Monday, December the 16th. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yep.
What's that all about?
Yeah. So as everybody knows, we received a transformational grant from the state earlier this year, $34.5 million. The county commissioners have secured another $5 million on top of that. And the city's chipping in a little bit more than that. So we're spending $40 million on park improvements. And this is the culmination of that design work. And it's an open house next Monday, this coming Monday, the 16th at 6 o'clock. We're going to do it in the Armory, which is the center point of the renovation. It'll be upstairs in the gym. And it's going to be an open house so the community can see all the different aspects of the project, get to see pictures, ask questions of the architects, the engineers, the planners, and really get a sense of all the cool stuff that's coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think that everybody is aware that we got the grant. Everybody has heard bits and pieces. But after the award, and because of the scale of it, there was a lot of work to be done with the state to sort of iron out. Once they say, okay, here's your money, we put together the application, but then there's a lot of details to iron out. Most of those details have been ironed out, and we'll be able to present to the public the vision, which is pretty exciting.
So all of the decisions of how the money is spent, has that been decided, or is that still open for public comment?
Great question. So I would say that the big moving pieces have been decided, and then there will be some sort of smaller design aesthetic stuff that still needs to happen. So big scale stuff. If you start with the Armory itself, is the center point of the project, complete renovation, and it will be home to the Convention and Visitors Bureau in the future. It'll be home to a visitor center for the community that will support the National Park Service. It'll support the Convention and Visitors Bureau. But what we were ironing out with the state is we're also going to build a new, we're calling it an annex to the visitor center, which will be a brand new facility that will be the first facility that anybody coming to visit the community walks into. And that's where the National Park Service will actually have their welcome with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then the Armory will provide more space and also community space, because for several years we've been working through how to make the Armory more of a community center. So business incubator, commercial kitchen for learning, space upstairs for bigger meetings, that sort of thing. So the Armory is the core, and building out from there. So I already mentioned the Visitor Center Annex, which would be a new build, displays, very modern. And then part of the grant application and the support from the community was moving the farmers market from the parking lot at the Service Center on Western Avenue into the park. So we're building a really exciting pavilion so that the farmers market can go year-round, something the farmers market has needed for a long time. And what that'll do is create a bit of a flow, sort of a campus, from the Armory to that annex to this pavilion. You can picture energy. And then we're also building an amphitheater, which will also be part of that campus and flow experience. Splash pad will be built in the same vicinity. But the neat thing is, based on the plans and based on previous parks and recreation plans and most recently the comprehensive plan, we're adding a significant amount of green space to the park. So you can picture today, it used to be the Chillicothe City School bus garage. Now it's where our service department is. That'll be torn down, and that'll be green space. Really make that eastern entrance to the park a lot more pretty. We asked for, but we're not funded for a brand new skate park and pump track, but we're still optimistic that we can figure out a way to get those funded as well. And then going out another layer, the roads around the park will be modified to make traffic flow better and to make it much safer for pedestrians. So we think about it almost as concentric circles, where you've got the core and then the next ring and then the outer ring. And so some of those design elements, for example, the road work, the images that were proposed by the engineering firm proposed a couple roundabouts. We are now to the point where pen to paper, we're figuring out dollar amounts. We're also trying to figure out something like a roundabout must be approved by City Council. It's a road change. It changes traffic signals. Those type of things are still being ironed out and will have to be approved by Council. But the overall big picture projects are basically nailed down at this point.
Does that include more parking around the Armory? Because if there's that much more traffic, as in people traffic, there's not a whole lot of parking there now.
Fantastic question. So if you can picture the fence that goes around the Armory now, and if you're facing the entrance to the Armory and you're looking to the left, which is the west, there's a gate and there's a little bit of parking in there. That, as it's currently proposed, that area surrounding the Armory could all become parking. Okay. And it also could have some more traffic flow to go around there. Basically, what we're trying to do is there's a whole world of park theory, essentially. How do you best design parks? And there's active space, and then there's passive space. And we really want to protect the passive space. One of the proposals, actually, in this project is closing the road that a short section of the road that basically, once you get to the Armory traveling north, the section of the road that slices off to the left and then kind of runs up to the north of the pond there,
right,
we'd actually close that off and expand the park space, add walking paths and trails in there. Because really, if you think about a park and the experience in a park, it is diminished by having traffic go right through the middle of it. Right. We've kind of created a park cut through, and the new design would basically make it so you don't cut through the middle of the park and disrupt people's experience with the park. Instead, it would be green space, new walking paths, and instead of cutting through the middle of the park to get through quicker, you would just do a loop around it. And so, really significant green space expansion, improvement to ball fields. The part of the proposal actually takes out Diamond One, which is there now, but it improves other fields because Diamond One, the kids that play Diamond One now, they also play at one of the pods in the annex, which is in better shape than it's ever been. So you have one field that's by itself and four together. What we're proposing now is really improving those four pods that are in the annex, so the league is in one place, not spread out everywhere, and using our space a little more strategically. Because we have, if you think about it, we've got baseball, softball, and t-ball fields kind of spread out all over the park, right, and concentrating them is a much more efficient way to use a park.
I'm thinking now, of course, this time of year, as we're doing this interview, the shine on, the lights are down through the park. A lot of people are driving through the park. Under this premise, it would be more of a walking experience than a driving experience.
Be a little bit of both. I think what we're anticipating is actually improving the infrastructure for the lighting, so that the driving experience for the lights is more of a loop around the park, so you're not cutting through the middle. But the road that goes along the lake would still be open. And actually, in this proposal, that road would be modified a little bit so that instead of being a one-way cut through, it would be a two-way road that meanders a little bit. So the traffic isn't fast, but you're able to go through both ways. And what we've learned with two-way traffic is it actually can be safer and slower than one-way traffic. And if you think about that road right now, there's no sidewalk on either side of it. There's no curb and gutter next to it. It just kind of peels off on the side of the road. There's actually no parking. People just pull off on the side of the road. And so what we're trying to do is design a place that has all of the positive features that we love today, and makes them just a little bit easier to access, a little bit better to enjoy, and flow better in a lot of different ways. And I think that what people hear, they hear tidbits and they get kind of nervous, but when you see the overall plan, for me anyway, I recognize how exciting it is. And I'll add that a couple other exciting things. One just was completed. If you haven't been on Riverside recently, at the bend in the bike path,
Yes.
Really nice new ramp access, ADA accessible. So that parking lot is now paved. There's nice ramp access to it. And then over at Balmer Field, which is the field that is closest to the northern basketball courts in the park, we have a project that is funded with grant money, but is completely separate from this huge. And we're going to do, if you can picture the new parking lot that we did at the pump house,
Yes.
be similar to that at Balmer Field, with with drainage, with green space, with trees, with an actual parking lot. And if you've driven by there ever, you've probably seen a ton of water ponding. It looks like a small swimming pool. Fix all that drainage issue. And that project might even start this winter. Probably won't be able to get it paved based on asphalt plants. But just a lot of exciting stuff happening in the park.
And again, that meeting at open house at the Armory in Yoctangee Park, that's December 16th. That's a Monday. What time?
6 o'clock. 6
Okay.
o'clock. So we have a special council meeting to do the second read of the budget. Should be a really quick meeting. 6 o'clock. I'm guessing it goes 6 to 8-ish. But I really hope that we get a big crowd down there to really check it out, ask questions, because you'll have myself, city staff, but then you're going to have these incredible professionals from different places in the state and really a couple places in the country who are going to come in and kind of not only explain the design elements, but the whys, like why things are happening and how it makes it a better park for families, for a better park for people who want quiet space, but also a better park for people who want active space. And I think that's the important thing right now. If you think about, just picture the parking lot sort of below Christie's there.
Yeah.
Gravel, messy, no organization, a lot of just unused space. To be able to complete that, one thing that people love these days is pickleball. We're adding pickleball courts, dedicated pickleball courts. So it really is going to put things that make sense together, and then but also go double down on preserving passive, quiet green space, add some more trees, and really sort of make it, in my mind, complete the image that they started with the park plan 20 plus years ago.
You mentioned splash pad a little bit earlier, and the thought came to my mind. I know that they were trying to raise money a number of years back to do some renovations with the municipal swimming pool. Did that get any money?
So the swimming pool is not a part of this project, but our current plan is, depending on the last time you've been to the pool, you might remember that there are 2 wading pools there. Both have water access. Our current proposal is to actually transition one of the wading pools into a splash pad inside of the pool.
Wow.
So it would be, it's kind of a modern feature now that a lot of pools have. It's essentially a water playground inside of a pool facility. So that would be one. And then the splash pad that is proposed as a part of this project, what we're envisioning is something that doesn't have as much of the bright, colorful playground-looking equipment, still water and flowing and fun for kids, but maybe something that fits the design aesthetic of nature and the park and that sort of thing, and probably a little bit longer lasting in terms of design. If you've ever been to Easton, you can picture the area where the water shoots out of the ground, but you don't see a lot of the sort of things that look like you're at a playground, and that's kind of what we envision, incorporating elements of nature and that sort of thing.
Changing gears, again, from City Council meeting Monday night, there were a number of people that came forward talking about the dispensaries for selling marijuana after the state referendum did pass, legalizing recreational use. I guess the cities throughout the state have some jurisdiction as to, where and, how they sell. What's Chillicothe's status on that?
Yeah, so the referendum, like you mentioned, was a year ago on the ballot, but really this story goes back several years to when medical passed. And for those that aren't aware, we've had a medical facility in town for several years now. in Ohio, municipalities are permitted to zone or regulate different types of industries, including this one. And so that one has been in place for several years now, and it went from being medical to medical and recreational in the place that it's at. And then there's another facility on Western Avenue that has been gotten some attention recently, people mentioning at the council meetings. So those are the two that are in the city. So communities do have the ability to zone and regulate their space. We're going through a whole zoning code rewrite. So that could be everything from a marijuana facility to a grocery store, commercial, residential. That is well within, they call it home rule. Yeah. We have municipalities have home rule in Ohio. And what is in front of council right now, this wasn't a request that I put forward, and last night I mentioned that it felt like there was some confusion on it, because it seems like there was the crowd is very much a very passionate crowd. My reading of the ordinance doesn't seem like it would affect anything that's already here. My reading of the ordinance is it seems like the ordinance would say no new ones anywhere until maybe some future laws are passed. And so that there was a comment last night like, how long would that last? And I just think that there's some details. Sometimes what happens is I've observed over the years, we have committee meetings, the smaller meetings, there's 3 council people on a committee, and that's kind of where the work happens. And a lot of times the committee meetings don't get a lot of attendance. Mm-hmm. They're not broadcast on Facebook. And so something comes out of committee, the committee looks around and says, looks good. Mm-hmm. Anybody have any comments? There's nobody in the room. Yeah. And then it goes forward. And then it gets on the agenda, and somebody sees it on the agenda and says, whoa, what's this? Yeah. And I think that's where we are now, where council looked around the room in a committee maybe and said, seems okay to me. Mm-hmm. And now it gets to the full city council, and people become aware of it, and they start asking questions. And council says, okay, we got to answer these questions. So last night at the end of the meeting, what they actually did was, the rule in Ohio is every ordinance in a city, every law that passes, must be read at 3 meetings. It was supposed to be read for the second time last night, and there was a motion which was approved that said we're just not going to read it. We got some questions to answer with some things to figure out, and I think City Council just decided, let's take a pause and answer some of these questions for folks and make sure that what we wrote is what we actually want to accomplish. So I think that's where we're at now, and I don't see, I'm not familiar with the rules around changing zoning after something's opening. Mm-hmm. So for example, I mentioned grocery stores before. If there was a grocery store down the street from you, and then somebody came along and said, we want to rezone that residential, you're not allowed to be there anymore, I would assume the grocery store would be upset. Yeah. So I do think that there is some legal standing or defense for people who already exist to be preserved. And I don't think that's what this ordinance is proposing, but I think we'll see it sort of sorted out over the coming weeks.
And I guess whether it's something like the marijuana sales, the dispensaries, or homeless shelters, you can throw any subject into this discussion. Sometimes there are people that are frustrated no matter what the decision is, but I guess the point we want to try to make is, and in fact, there was a gentleman that came up and had a question, and you said, please contact me at my office, we can discuss it. And you have an open office for that. You have open office hours in the community, and it might be one of those that who shows up. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Here we are on Litter Media. Mm-hmm. The media landscape has changed, and what we've tried to do is make my office as available to people as possible. And it's a good segue, because going into next year, we've talked about trying to take those open office hours, make them virtual, because what we try to do is move those office hours around the city, move the times around. Some people have day shifts, some people have a night shift. Sure. And genuinely, I take those questions seriously. You know me, I'm long-winded. When somebody comes to a council meeting, I'm a guest at the council meetings, and it's not the best environment for a dialogue. Mm-hmm. The question you're referring to last night was a question about taxes. Right. There are very few questions about taxes, other than the joke about the certainty in life. that are short and brief. And so I just said, yeah, give me a call. We'll sit down and talk because I'm happy to explain. But oftentimes that question that's directly asked at a council meeting, it's not an environment that's conducive to answering a relatively complicated tax question. But we really do want to answer those questions because what we genuinely feel like is the more people are informed, especially about how and why decisions are made. I think that's the most complicated thing is getting across. I think the best example was, or the one that really got attention and conversation was when 2nd Street went to two-way. Yep. The amount of time and energy that went into making sure that was a right decision, traffic counts, research on safety, a lot of it was sort of challenging sort of our conventional thoughts and norms to say what actually is safe and what does the data support. And we try to do that in most of our decisions, but people are busy and people have jobs and people just see a road. It was one way, now it's two-way. Change is tough. And, probably I'm the only person that, falls asleep and wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about, should that road be two-way or one-way in Chillicothe? Other people just have a disruption in their life. And so what we want to do is really be able to thoroughly explain the rationale. And the other thing that I'll admit is I'm wrong. We can be wrong about these things, but what we want to do is have the evidence that supports them, the decisions, and make sure, a lot of times in government, what we're trying to do is make decisions, either one that is just the greatest good. How do you help the most amount of people? And then another decision that we try to make is also sometimes decisions in government are for protecting the most underrepresented people, right? And so that's not always impacting the most people, but sometimes it's protecting the people who have the hardest time protecting themselves. So there's a lot of conflicting interests, and we'll have council meetings and zoning and where things are put. You mentioned homeless shelters. Those are usually the ones that get the most attention because those decisions can be disruptive to neighborhoods and they can be very challenging to navigate through. And I think that's a little bit of what was happening or what has been happening with this one ordinance is some people might support a type of business. They just don't want it in their backyard or next to a school or next to a church and that sort of thing. And I think if we're respectful of those comments and really try to listen and navigate and then are thoughtful, because sometimes I have to disagree with people. Yeah. And sometimes I have to say, Luke agrees. The mayor disagrees. That sort of thing. Because my job is not always exercising or telling you what my personal opinion is, right? And sometimes we're making decisions that are not what Luke would decide, but what is best for the city.
I just hope Mrs. Feeney heard you say earlier that you can be wrong on occasion. Stacy, I hope you caught that.
There's a sign above the door.
Yeah, my wife says, there's number 49, there's number 50. And over 40 years, that's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Bad. Good discussion today, Luke. We, again, wish you happy holidays this coming up as well as your family.
Same to you. Thank you.
Again, Chillicothe Mayor Luke Feeney, our special edition guest on Litter Media Live, brought to you by McDonald's. I'm Mike Smith.